Entry-level jobs have always been the first step in young professional careers. But now with AI, it feels like those opportunities are more difficult to find. The question is, what do you do about it right now? Today, we're breaking down the real data on what's happening, why it's not quite as catastrophic as the internet makes it sound, and the specific moves that will set you apart when the path everyone else followed no longer exists. Welcome back to the show. I'm glad you're back with us today.
Hey, thank you. So, Carey, there is this growing feeling online that entry levels just don't exist anymore. When you first started seeing that narrative pick up, did you think that that was kind of overblown, or did it match what you were hearing?
There are so many headlines out there right now about entry-level jobs disappearing, and they're overstated right now. They're overstated on the amount of entry-level jobs that have declined, as well as the reasons for them. A lot of narrative is just out there to get your eyeballs, to get your attention, and get you to read that content. You need to look deeper, look into the facts to really understand what's happening in the job market today. The truth is that unemployment for recent college graduates has ticked up a bit. It's around 5.7%. And that's higher than it was just a few years ago when it was hovering around 3.5% to 4%. So slightly higher. But that does mean that a lot of people do have jobs and that hiring is continuing. And just to put these numbers in perspective, because they just sound like numbers, right? During COVID, for the same group of people, for youth with college degrees, unemployment was around 13% at one point. During the 2008 financial crisis and a couple of years afterwards, 2010, 2011, youth unemployment was around 7 and 8%. And during the dot-com boom, if you go back to 2000, 2001, it was around 5 to 6%. So we've had periods and times where unemployment is higher than usual, but our job market is still moving. There are still jobs out there.
Yeah, I mean, people are still struggling to find jobs, right? And they're applying everywhere, putting out applications to everywhere they can, but they're just not getting any feedback or hearing back from anybody. What are your thoughts on that?
So even though youth unemployment has been drifting higher, there are jobs out there. It's just highly competitive to get them. And the reason why there is so much more competition for these jobs is artificial intelligence, but not for the reasons you think. The reasons why there's so much competition right now is artificial intelligence has made it easy for people to apply to so many more jobs than they used to in the past. It makes it easy to customize your resume and upload it and apply to thousands of jobs with a touch of a button. But labor economists are not finding that artificial intelligence is having a significant impact on entry-level jobs yet, except in a couple of fields. So what you're feeling in this highly competitive job market is really because we're in a slow growth economy where businesses are faced with uncertainty from a lot of different angles, from things like what are oil prices going to be? What's going on with the tariffs? Are we charging tariffs? Are we not charging tariffs? Things like that freeze senior executive leadership decision making. It forces them to think carefully about investments, and it's putting us into a low fire, low hire mode. So people are just freezing and staying in place in their jobs, which means it's harder for you to get a job right now and making it highly competitive.
You talk about, being highly competitive in the job market, and a lot of applications are flooding,
Right.
The executives' desks, basically. Is there something that you suggest that could maybe set somebody apart from their application, or even maybe an AI application, something that maybe helps them stand out a little more?
The temptation with AI is that it enables you to apply for a whole bunch more jobs, which you're tempted to do. But the problem is that then you're going to have a generic application. And you're looking for anything granular and specific about you that makes you stand out. And that's what AI is not going to be good at. So my best advice is, unfortunately, spending time looking at those individual applications for the jobs you really want and customizing them for the job description and for what the employer is looking for. Look at what your skills are. Look at the job competencies that are listed in the job description and make sure that you have an accomplishment listed on your resume that addresses each one. And this goes back to learning the language of job skills, not just listing what your degree is, but what did you learn from that degree and how does it relate to what the employer wants you to do? The other thing you need to lean into is this is a time for networks. More and more jobs are being awarded to people based on their networks. I read a statistic recently that around 50% of jobs that are out there are actually being filled by people based on referrals, not based on applications, which is also what you're feeling right now. People are finding people within their network to refer them to the hiring manager or to someone in the company and getting in there before the manager has to go through all the flood of resumes that they've received. But unfortunately, that may be before you, which is why it feels so competitive.
Maybe a young graduate or somebody in their early 20s is looking to start applying, and you talking about looking to your network, and somebody that's younger may not have the network that they can tap into to, find that information. What are some actionable items that you think that they can really jump on now to help them get ahead of that?
I think first you have a network. Whether that network is able to help you get into the career you want is a question, but you have a network, and you need to start thinking about it in those terms. The people you met at school, where do their parents work? Where do their brother and sister work? Your professors, was there a professor that you got along well with? That person may have connections. You think about your parents and your brother and sister and where they work. So you need to start to think about those people who are just friends and family members and who they may know. And that's how you start to build your network. The other thing you need to start to be very careful of is how you treat people, because they're going to remember it. And when you come back for a favor, you come back and ask for a referral or for an introduction, you want to make sure they know who you are and they like you. So you need to be treating people right, sending them a nice thank you and being respectful of their time and building those relationships and maintaining them as you go through your career process. It's really important, especially when you're younger, that you maintain positive relationships with everybody around you because you never know who's going to be in a position to help you.
It's very true. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't have a network, if you look at everybody in your space and no one has a connection at that company or within that field, you can do an informational interview with somebody at the company or in the field to start to meet people who do that type of work.
So when you say informational interview, what exactly do you mean by that?
An informational interview is, I think, is a secret weapon. Everybody likes to talk about themselves, and a lot of people like to talk about their job. You can contact a stranger, somebody you've never met, and ask, may I have 10 minutes of time to talk to you about your job? Don't ask for them to do something. Don't ask them for a job. Don't ask them for a referral. They don't know you, and that's too easy to ignore. But if you say, I'm trying to learn more about a job in this profession, and I know you're an expert, and just ask for a short amount of time, more often than not, people will respond positively, especially if you can find any connection with them. I would look at your school's alumni network. Every alumni career office has a list of alumni who are willing to talk to students. Start there. Depending on your size of school, you're probably going to find somebody in your field who is already primed to help you. Reach out to them, but again, be respectful. Don't ask for too much time. Don't ask for their help yet. Spend some time talking to them about their career and letting them get to know you so that at the end of the interview, you can then say, is there any way you might be able to help? Or also, a lower ask is asking them, is there anybody else I should talk to? Anybody else you recommend I contact as I try to figure out what my career interests are? It's a secret weapon to start to build your network within your profession when you don't know anybody.
That's a great point. That's a really, really key piece. So this narrative is real, right? It's not the whole story though, right? And let's look at what the actual hiring numbers say. What is the data really telling us?
Well, as we said before, youth unemployment with a college degree has been hovering around that 5 to 6%, depending on what your major is. Some of the majors are a little higher, some of the majors are a little bit lower. But what people are feeling is the amount of effort it takes to get a job. In looking at data from last year's college graduates, they had to submit 10 resumes and 10 job applications for every 6 resumes and job applications the prior year graduates had to submit. So that's real. That's more effort. They're starting earlier. They're starting usually 3 to 6 months earlier in the job search than prior years. And that's where this competition's coming from. It's taking more effort to get less opportunity.
So when you were applying for jobs, do you remember how many times or how many applications you actually submitted versus what people are doing now?
I've had a lot of jobs in my life, but the one that I remember most fondly, and I still have, is when I was in my last years of law school and looking for a job, and I was going to a great school. I had top grades, and it was still brutally competitive. And I still have a stack of no's that is like this big. Because we did everything paper, it wasn't electronic. I actually still have the letters, and I keep them to keep myself humble because I have all these no's. But I ended up getting the one yes that was the right one, and it started my career. And it was a great firm and a good experience. But man, I got told a lot of no's before I got that yes.
It only takes that one
Right.
yes, right?
Right.
So to keep trying and to keep going at it,
Real quick, if you're a recent grad navigating this job market and this episode is helping you make sense of it, hit subscribe and drop me a comment telling me how many applications you've sent. I want to hear it. Now back to the show.
So with the competitive market that we have now, do you advise people to just get a job and start working, maybe necessarily it's not even in the field? Or do you feel like it's really important to hold out for that one job that they really, really want?
I think for most people, they can't afford to wait. And I think it is okay to go out and get a job and be working and keep looking and keep looking. And that takes a lot of time and energy, but it's where we are with this current job market. And what I'm most concerned about right now is that a lot of youth are underemployed. And what do I mean by that is they're in jobs that either don't fit their skill set, maybe don't require a college degree and they have one, or maybe don't meet their hours needs. Maybe it's a part-time job and they're actually looking for full-time work. There's a recent report that came out by a group called Burning Glass that estimated that around 52% of the recent college grads are underemployed right now. And that's most concerning to me. And part of the reason why is this tough job market we're talking about. But part of the reason is also that students aren't getting the education and training where the jobs are. People are being told, go pursue your passions and pursue your interests without understanding, is there a job at the end of that trail? We need to be paying attention to what's the labor market required and what you're going to get paid for, and make sure that that matches up. And it's okay if you have a job for a salary, that it's not your passion. That's okay. You can have your passion on the side on the weekends. It may not be ideal. Some people are lucky enough to have that dream job, but a lot of people aren't.
Right.
A lot of people aren't.
Bills need to get paid, right?
Right? Bills need to get paid.
For all those people who had just graduated, what's the biggest mindset shift do you think that they need to focus on right now?
So for new grads who are looking for work, and we're about in that season, a new crop of folks are going to be graduating soon. The most important thing I would say is learn the language of skills and learn how to translate your education experience and your work experience into skills on your resume and on LinkedIn. And by skills, I mean an employer doesn't hire you because you have a bachelor's degree or whatever your degree is, associate's degree. They hire you because of the skills that you learned when you accomplished that degree. So, for example, if you have a bachelor in engineering degree, they're not hiring you for the piece of paper. They're hiring you because you know how to break down problems and solve them. That's what they're looking for. LinkedIn has said that people who have skills listed on their LinkedIn page are 50% more likely to get views from HR and from recruiters than people who don't have skills listed. So learn the language of skills. Other things to think about, with this highly, highly competitive job market, now is the time to think about geography. We all have desired places we want to live, but it may be time to start off in a smaller, different city that isn't quite as attractive, but where there's jobs. I see this a lot with my students who I work with, who are in Dallas and in Austin, and particularly Austin. People don't want to leave, but that means that job market is even more competitive. And also think about which industries you're looking at. A lot of people focus on big names that you see every day, commercial products like Apple or Amazon. But there's a lot of companies out there whose name you may not recognize, but may be a good employer. Think about insurance companies, hospital systems, the government. There's a lot of places that there is still work. The name and the brand may not be sexy, but it may be a good place to start your career. And you can see where it takes you from there.
You had mentioned that students who have graduated from UT don't necessarily want to leave Austin. Do you think it's better to move to a big city to have more opportunity, or do you think there's opportunity everywhere?
And I think that's true for a lot of schools and college towns. I just mentioned Austin because I spend time down there. I think a lot of people don't want to leave because you don't want to leave the experience. And it's your safety net and what you know. But the reality today is we have to be mobile and go where the jobs are. And sometimes in a less desirable city, you may be able to find more opportunity. So you don't have to have your first job in your dream location. That may be something you need to work towards.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I mean, I started off in retail, and I knew that if you were willing to move and mobile, you were willing to get promoted, or you were probably going to get promoted faster because you could relocate, and that is definitely a factor in a lot of this for sure.
And it's going to be throughout your career. And if you're more mobile, you will have more opportunities no matter what your level. I saw that in my executive career in trying to stay where I was in Texas. It limited my opportunities. But if I'm willing to move other places, that's where the opportunities are. And that's the way to climb the ladder. It's something to think very seriously about with your career, is being mobile and following where the opportunities are, because they're going to move around.
And it's not necessarily forever, right? If you have to move to an undesirable city, it's not necessarily forever. And who knows, you may love it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All that said, you don't need all the answers. Nobody has them. What you need is real data and the confidence to act on it. And that's what we're here for. Drop your questions in the comments section, hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time.